In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new football bracelet using the Rainbow Loom. So here's what it looks like when it's done. When you have one loom, you can fit 3 footballs on. And then I decided to use yellow for the outside, and then I used navy blue for the middle row. And you can see that it's not long enough to fit around your wrist with one loom, so you will have to add extension bands. But if you happen to have 2 looms, you can connect them end to end to make it twice as long. And so you're going to have your loom set up in a staggered position so the pins are not in line with one another. And we're going to begin with the arrows facing away from you so that all of these opened ends are facing away from you. And you will need to choose your colors. So obviously you'll want white and brown for the football. So these brown bands are from the Rainbow Loom Skin Tone Pack, and you will need 42 brown. And then I have the Rainbow Loom white bands. You will need 9 of those. And then for the background, I've decided to do one solid color. So I have the dark green, and you will need 90 of those. And then you'll need some additional bands for your extension. I'm going to begin by placing the bands on the outer rows of the loom. So for this part, I'm going to use my main color, and I'm always going to be putting on 2 bands at once. So you're just taking them and putting them together. Starting on the center pin, I'm going to go out to the left, just putting them on together as if they were one band. And now I'm going to take 2 more, and I'm just going to work my way up the left side of the loom. I'm always putting 2 on at once, and I'm always pushing them down. So I'm just going to fast forward through this part since I know this video is going to get long. And I'm going to stop 1 pin short from the end of the loom, and the last set of bands is going to go into the center. And then I'm going to go back to the start with the arrows still facing away from me. And this time I'm going to go from the center over to the right. Again, I'm always doing 2 bands at once, and I'm always pushing them down to the bottom. And so I'm just going to work my way up the right side of the loom. And once again, I'm stopping 1 pin short from the end of the loom. And then the last set of bands is going into the center. And so now that I've done that, I want to turn my loom around so the arrows are facing towards me. And I'm going to start to put the football on. I'm going to start with white, and I want this band to be doubled. So in order to do that, I just place it on my hook, twist, and put it back on. So you see 2 bands on there. And this is going to go on the 3rd pin up from the end of the loom. It's going to stretch from the left side all the way over to the right side. And now I also want it to go over this center pin that's closest to me, the 2nd pin up. So I'm just going to pull that down to make an upside down triangle. And now I want to take a 2nd white band, and I'm going to double that again, placing it on my hook, twisting, and putting it back on. And this is going to do a mirror image of this triangle. So on the left hand side, it's going up to the pin above, and it's stretching all the way across to the left. And now this time I want it to go on the pin above. So it's making the right side up triangle. And now these white bands are going to stay at the bottom of the pins until the last step. And now I'm going to take another white band, and again I want this to be doubled. And this one is going to go from the center pin, the 2nd one up, and it's going to stretch up to the 4th one. So I'm placing this on that 2nd pin, but now I want to twist this. So you can see that my hook is facing up, and I want to twist around 2 complete turns. So this is 1 and 2. Now it is going to be tight. I want to go around this middle pin and go to this next pin up. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get on since we twisted it and it's doubled, so it's tight. You need to get both of these loops to go through and go on that pin. And so now I'm going to take a brown band and I'm going to double it. And I want this one to go on the third pin up on the left hand side. It's going to do a long diagonal stretch all the way over to the right. And this one can just go right over top of that center pin. Since we're not twisting it, doesn't matter. And now I'm going to take another brown band and double it. And this time it's going to go to the fourth pin up on the left hand side, and it's going to do a long diagonal stretch going across the middle pin and down to the right hand side. So I just made a long X with the brown bands. So that's going to get pushed down. And now I'm going to add another layer of brown. And this time I'm just going to outline the circle. So we'll start on the center pin here. It's the second one up. And I'm just going to go around and outline this circle. Just putting one band right after the other. And then back to the start. And now I want to remove the bottom layer of bands, not the white triangles, they're staying on till the end, but that next layer that we put on. So I'll start on the left hand side here. You have this white band on the bottom, we're skipping that. So you're taking the next set of bands, which is the brown bands, and they're going over the top and into the middle. Just make sure as you're doing that these upper bands don't get pulled off. And then to this next one up, again, you're ignoring the bottom white. You're taking the next set of brown bands, putting them into the middle. Now on this top pin, you're going to have to grab them from the side. And it actually is the white band that you see on this pin. The triangle band is going around the back side. We want to grab the two white bands that are under the brown bands. It's this one that we twisted. It's going to be tight. You're pulling both of those white bands up and over. And see, this triangle band is still on the bottom. Flip to the other side here, and this time is the two brown bands. And on this next one, again, it's two brown bands. And then finally at the bottom here, we're ignoring the very bottom two white bands. You want to get the next two white bands. It's the other side of this twisted band. That's coming over the top and into the middle. And now I am going to push all of this down, and I'm going to add another layer of brown that's going to outline the circle. So starting in the middle, just going to work my way around here. And back to the start. And now once again I want to remove the bottom brown layer, and I'm still not doing anything with the white, so I'm going to have two brown bands to come over the top and into the middle. I'll start on the left here. Again, don't do anything with the white. And at the top here you're going to have to grab from the side. So you're taking the two lower brown bands and flip to the other side here. Just ignoring those white bands for the moment. The pins do get a little full, so sometimes it's hard to separate them. And then back to the bottom here. Again, I'm pushing this in towards the center. And now finally, I want the white bands to come off. So I'm just going to carefully pull them over these pins and release that, and it's just going to make a line here in towards the middle. This is going to be your stripe on the ends of the football, and push this down. So that is one football down, 2 more to go. So in the center row, I'm skipping this next pin, and I'm going to the pin above. Now this is going to be the bottom of the next circle of the football, and so I want the white band to go on the pin that's diagonally up to the left and make this triangle with a white band. So from where this brown band is on the left hand row, it's going to be the 3rd pin up. Just so you know where your placement is, I'm doubling this white band, and it's going on that 3rd pin up from where your brown band is. It's stretching all the way across from the left to the right, and then it's also coming down. And so now you'll see that there's just one empty pin in between these circles. I'm going to push this down. Now I need to take another white band and double it. It's going to that next pin up, stretching across, and now it's also going to the pin above. Now I want to take another white band and double it. It's going from this bottom of the circle here, and it's stretching up to the top, and it also needs to be twisted. So I'm placing it on, and I'm going to do 2 complete turns of my hook, stretching it around that middle pin. And as I said, this is a little bit difficult to get on. You want to make sure both of those bands make it on the top there. And now I'm going to double a brown band. It's going to the left hand side here of the circle, and it's going diagonally up and to the right, skipping over the middle. And now I'm going to double the next brown band, and that's going from the pin above there, doing a diagonal stretch all the way down to the bottom right, making that X. Push this down, and now we're going to outline the circle with brown. So I'll start at the bottom here in the middle, and I'll just work my way around the circle. And now I'm going to remove that underneath layer. I'm not doing anything with the white bands, the triangle bands. So I'll start on the left here, grabbing the bottom 2 brown, pulling them into the center. Just keep those upper bands on. And the same thing again, ignore the white. And now on this top pin here, you're going to have to grab from the side, and they are white bands that are going to come off, but it's not the triangle band. It's the one that we twisted. It's definitely tight. Go around to the other side. Now we have the bottom brown, and then again the bottom brown, and finally at the bottom here, it's the 2 white, not the very bottom ones of the triangle, but the ones above. Going to push this all down. And now I want to outline the circle again with brown bands. And now I want the bottom layer of brown to come off. So again, I'll start on the left, and then at the top here I'm having to grab these from the side. The pins do get full at the bottom. I'm going to push all of this in towards the middle. And now I want the white bands to come off. So I'm just pulling them over the pins that they're around, these 3 pins. And now the same thing on the other side. And push this all down. So we have one more to do here. And again, I'm taking a white band to double. And in the center here, we're skipping the next pin up. We're going to this pin above. That's going to be the bottom of the circle. And so I'm going diagonally up and to the left, and that's where this band is going to make the triangle. So I'm doubling the white band. It's going all the way across and then down. And then doubling the next one and going to the pin above and then pulling that triangle part up. So you should just be 1 pin short from the end of your loom. I'm doubling another white band. It's going from the bottom of the circle, stretching up and twisting around 2 complete times. And now going on this top pin. If you find that you're really struggling with that, because it is so tight, you can do less turns if you want to just go around 1 time. It just won't make the middle part as tight. And so now I'm taking a brown band and doubling it. It's going from the left-hand side of the circle at the bottom, stretching all the way across to the right, doubling a second one, going to that next pin up, and it's going all the way down to the bottom right. Push this down, and now I'm going to start the outlining part. So there are a lot of steps, but I think after you make the first couple, you'll sort of get the hang of it, hopefully. If not, you can always just rewind or pause. And so now I want the bottom layer to come off, but not the white triangle bands. So starting on the left, I have the 2 bottom brown. And then brown again. And at the top here, you're grabbing from the side. You want the 2 white bands to come off. The triangle bands are behind this pin, so you should only see the 2 white bands that you want. And they are very tight. On the opposite side here, we have the bottom brown. And again. And then at the very bottom here, you want these upper white bands to come off, leaving that triangle alone. And I'm going to push all of this down. And now I want to outline the circle once again. We're getting down to the end here. And I'm removing that bottom layer of brown. And from the side here, and then from the bottom, and I'm going to push all of this in towards the middle. And now I want this white band to come off of the pins. And now push all of this down. So now the footballs are done. And I still need to put a row in the center. So I need to turn the loom around again so the arrows are facing away from me. And now I'm going to just go up this center row using 2 bands at once, and I want to push them down. So it's just going to go right over top of this football. So I will fast forward here. And I'm going all the way to the end of this row. And so now I'm going to turn my loom around so the arrows are now facing towards me and all of the opened ends are facing me. And now the next thing I want to do is get the brown bands that are on the outside rows to go into the center. So I'm going to just start on the left hand side here. I'm going to take these 2 brown bands and they're going to come off and they're both going to go into the middle here on the center pin. And then I'll take the 2 brown bands on the next pin, get them to go into the middle. So this middle pin is going to get very full. I'm going on the right hand side and I'm getting those 2 brown bands. They're going into the center. And then finally here on the bottom right, they're going to go into the middle. So there's a lot of bands on here now, and it is going to be difficult when you do the hooking process to get that green band to come up through. And we're going up to the next one. We're getting the 2 brown bands to go into the middle. And the reason that I'm doing this is to have the football have more of an oblong shape. Because if I just left the bands on the outside, it would have more of a circular shape, like the basketball and baseball tutorials. So I'm going to go around to the other side here. I'm only getting the ones on the outside to move in. And now I will go up to the top here and repeat, getting those 2 brown bands to move into that center pin, just on the outside edges. And you will have to push this down to the bottom. And now the ones from the right have to go on. And push down. And so now I'm going to go to the bottom of the loom. The arrows are still facing towards me. And now I'm going to place the cap bands. So the first one is going to go on the end pin here. It's going to be double. It's going to get placed right on the top. And now the rest of these bands that are going to go up the loom, they're going to go from the left hand side across to the right and also to the pin above. So it's going to make a triangle shape, and these bands are just going to hold the 3 rows together. So I'm just going to work my way up the loom. And the last one is going to go here. I'm not doing any at the very top. And now we're ready to start the looping. So we're going to the very bottom here, arrows facing towards you, starting in the center. Now this pin is very full. The top 2 bands are the cap band that we just placed on. The next set of bands goes forward. The next set of bands goes to the left, and then the bottom set of bands goes out and to the right. So I'm just taking my hook and pushing back on the top 2 bands, grabbing these next 2. I'm going to hold this in place with my thumb and move these bands ahead. Again, I'm going back down through, pushing back on that cap band, getting the next set of bands. I'm going to hold this cap band in place, and these are going out and to the left. And now finally I'm going down through, and the last set of bands is going out and to the right. And so now I'm just going to work my way up the left side of the loom. So I have the top 4 bands here I'm pushing back on, getting them behind my hook, and I have the bottom 2. They're going to move ahead. And now for the rest of the way up, I have this triangle band. You just want to make sure that you're putting your hook down through the middle and that triangle band is behind your hook. And now you're just grabbing the bottom 2 and moving them ahead. We don't have any football bands to worry about until we get to the center. So that makes this bracelet a little bit easier than some of the other sports bracelets that I've done. But then when we get to the middle, it is going to be a little more difficult because we have all those bands piled up in the center. So you're just making sure that triangle band is always behind your hook. And these bottom 2 are just coming up through and moving ahead. And now the last set of bands is coming up through and going into the middle. So now I'm going to go back to the start, and this time I'm going to do the same thing, working my way up the right side of the loom. So again, I'm going down through, getting these top 4 bands to go behind my hook, getting the bottom 2 to come up and move ahead. And now for the rest of this row, I just have to make sure that that triangle band is behind my hook. And I only have these bottom 2 to come up. And so you just want to be careful as you're doing it. These shouldn't be too tough, but it helps if you have bands that slide against each other, as opposed to the more rubbery bands. So that's why I like to use the Rainbow Loom brand for this type of bracelet. And we're getting to the top here. And now on this last one, again, the 2 bands are coming up and going into the center. And so now I'm going back to the start, and now we're ready to loop the center row. And so what I'm going to do first before I actually loop the rest of the center row is I'm going to take the green bands and try and get them at the top of the pin so that they are above these brown bands, because this is already very full. So I'm just going to take my hook and push back on these upper brown bands. Probably can't really get a very good camera angle on this, but I just want these 2 green bands to come up through. And I don't actually want them to come off the pin, but I just want them to come to the top of the pin. So that way they're going to be easier to grab. And I'll do the same thing for the next football. I'm going to go down through, I'm pushing back on these upper bands with my hook. Just don't put too much pressure on your hook. And it's a little bit difficult, but you want the 2 green. I'm bringing them up to the top. And now on this next one again, I'm going down through. I want to find those 2 green bands. Make sure you're just grabbing the 2 green and nothing else. Here, now I have the 2 green. Just loosening them up and bringing them to the top of that pin so it's going to be easier to grab. So now I'm going back to the start here, and I'm doing the center row. So on the bottom here, I have the top 2 green bands, or whatever color your background is, to move ahead. And I'm going to still try and keep these green bands that I've moved up, keep them to the top of that pin. And now I want to go back down through for the brown, and they're going over there as well. So now you can see we have these 2 green bands, and they're already at the top for us. They still are going to be tight because there's so many other bands on this pin. So just be careful you don't want to snap your bands, which is another reason why I like to use Rainbow Loom, because I think they're stronger. And move them up. And now for this next pin, you have the 2 green to move ahead. And now you have these 2 brown, and you need them to move ahead as well. But the problem is they're wrapped around the back side of the pin, so you can't just reach inside. What you're going to have to do is put your hook in and get it underneath of all of these green bands, these upper green bands. Reach it out to the side and hook these brown bands. Get them off of that pin, and now they're going to have to move up to the pin above. It's a little bit tight, and you can just straddle this pin. And now on the next one here we have just the green. And now on this next one we have the 2 green that are on the top. And again, we pulled up these green bands in the middle of this football, and you want to try and leave them exposed so they're easier to grab. And now I have to go back down through this pin and get the brown ones to move up. And so now I want to grab these 2 green bands. Again, they're very tight, so just carefully you can wiggle them back and forth a little bit to loosen them. Move them to the pin above. And now on the next one we have the 2 green. And now also this brown that's wrapped around the back side of the pin. So you're pushing your hook out to the side, make sure it's under all the green bands. Getting the brown to come out and move ahead. And then just straddle that pin with these rubber bands. And onto the next one, it's just green. And here we have green at the top. Again, try and leave the green bands that you pulled up from the middle, try and leave them exposed. And now the brown. And now you want to grab these 2 green bands, and again, very tight, so carefully just wiggle them, move them forward. And here's green. And then finally brown, that's going to have to be grabbed from the side. Pull them out and forward. And I'm going to just straddle this pin. And so now what I'm going to do is go back to the start, and I'm going to carefully start removing this from the loom because I want everything to stay in the right shape. So I'm just going to stick my hook in through the pins and just carefully take this off. And where the footballs are in the center, it is going to be very tight. So just be careful. I don't want anyone breaking their hooks while they're taking them off. And so before I go any further, I'm going to take my hook, put it down through the middle pin on the end, make sure it goes through all of these bands, push it out to the side, and now I can take this band, I'm just going to pull it up through, put it back on my hook, and so now this is holding all of those loose ends together, so make sure it stays on your hook. You can put your thumb over it, and now you can carefully take the rest of this off. And then here are your footballs. So you might have to adjust them a little bit as far as the shape goes. Squeeze in the sides, try and get that oval shape. Make sure that the white bands are in a good position. And same thing for the rest of them. Just make sure that these green bands are staying on your hook as you're adjusting these. And so as I've said, it's not going to be long enough to put around your wrist, so you're going to have to make an extension. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and I'm going to take my loom with the arrows facing away from me, and now I'm just going to take a couple of extra bands. So I'll do 4 for each side. I'm starting on the end, and I'm just placing the bands to the next pin up. I'm going to do 4 here. And now I'm going to place these 2 green bands that are on my hook. I'm going to put them on as the next band. Just going to stretch this out. And so now I'm going to reach down inside, grab this band, and it's going to just pull back towards me. Just going to work my way back. Now this is just going to make a single chain, and if you want, you can double these bands, meaning putting 2 on at once to make it thicker, or you can really make any bracelet design you want. Reaching my hook down through, pulling this off of the loom. And now I'm going to take a clip. I have a C-clip here. You can use whatever clip you have available. I'm going to hook those 2 bands through. And now I'm going to the other side here. There's a circle right in the middle. I'm going to put my hook up through. I'm going to grab another green band, pull that through, put it back on. Again, I'm setting this to the side. And now I'm going to place 4 more bands on the loom. And again, I have the arrows still facing away from me. And now I'm putting the rubber bands on that are on my hook, stretching that out. And now I can go down through and just pull these back towards myself. Putting my hook down through the middle, pulling this off, and now I can take my clip and get these other bands to go through. And now my bracelet is complete. And then here is the other bracelet that I made that I showed you at the beginning of the video. And so there's a lot of different color choices that you can go with. I hope that everyone enjoyed this tutorial. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!